we officially welcome you to the webinar. Today, we have an exciting lineup of portfolio organizations that are working on climate resilience and adaptation on a panel. To give you a flavor of the audience in the room, today's registered attendees include fellow investors, ecosystem players, and government partners operating from 18 different countries. Just before we start, I just want to share some notes with you. Please note that the webinar will be recorded and questions will be taken at the end of the panel. However, please feel free to raise your questions under the Q&A function. If you have specific questions for a certain panelists, please indicate who it should be addressed to. Lastly, a feedback form will be provided at the end, and we appreciate hearing from you. Now I'll pass it to Francesco, Investment Director for GIF, who will be doing an introduction on Global Innovation Fund. Over to you, Francesco.
Thank you, Sujing. My name is Francesco, and I'm an Investment Director at GIF. I'm going to walk you quickly through what GIF is all about, a bit about our mission, our ways of thinking impact, and delve a bit more into what climate resilience means to us and why we focus on that. Next slide, please. GIF, it's all about backing innovative, transformative solutions for social impact. This is everything we do. We de-risk innovations and we catalyze funding to help them accelerate, achieve larger scale. And we focus on scale in all of our decision making. So really, GIF mission is based on 3 pillars: innovations, de-risking those innovations and catalyzing more funding for them through active portfolio management, and supporting them in their journey to achieve large impact at scale. Next slide, please. And we try, in our best capacity, to be the most additional. How do we structure our additionality? Well, firstly, we provide flexible finance. The portfolio that will be presented today, our incredible companies, are a testament of that. From equity to debt to credit lines and grant making, we try to meet entrepreneurs where they need it to really strengthen their social impact capacities. Our finance is not only flexible, but it's also long-term and patient, and is executed by an experienced global team. The people on the call are a testament of that. From Europe, North America, East Africa, and Southeast Asia, we find the best innovation, provide them with the capital they need, and we're patient. We understand that it takes time to scale social impact. Next slide, please. Impact is our North Star. We make our investment decisions based on our practical impact methodologies, which is a proprietary model that measures breadth, depth, and probability that the innovation will scale. This way of thinking allows us to address 2 of the most important problems with being an impact investor. First, comparing an agriculture investment with a health investment, making the best impact decision with different sectors. And 2, really providing enough weight to a company that has large breadth, perhaps less depth, and vice versa. We implement practical impact throughout our investment process, and it's the way we drive our decision making. Impact is our North Star. However, we also complement that with certain lenses and approaches. We have a strong ESG analysis and approach, and a gender and climate market that allows us to really make our basically gender and climate strategies effective. Next slide. And if we boil it down to our investment teams, they're really selected to maximize as much as possible our additionalities. We'll delve a bit more into why climate resilience, and you'll see that very clearly. But really, GIF, it's focusing on 3 key themes. The first is making public services work for the poor and easing market frictions. The second is climate resilience and adaptation. And the third is gender. We look at investments holistically, and each one of our investments goes through a proper ESG and analytics analysis, and gender and climate lenses are applied to all of our investments. Next slide. So why climate adaptation and resilience? Well, as I said, everything we do, it's about social impact, but that is only worth it if we can be additional to the sector. We know that people living in least developed countries are 10 times more likely of being affected by climate change. We know that only 7% of climate finance goes into climate resilience and adaptation. and only 4% of VC investments in Africa is directed to agriculture, a sector that is crucial for adaptation and resilience. And we also know that women are disproportionately negatively impacted by climate change. So we focus on climate adaptation and resilience, again, to be the most additional. And this data proves that we're going in the right direction. Next slide, please. A few years ago, we set out with our climate adaptation mandate, and we built a diverse portfolio of climate innovation. Thanks to our partners and funders, we've been able to deploy $33 million in 18 climate deals, impacting 48 million people, of which half are women and girls. Outcomes have included improved access to clean water, health outcomes, and increased income. We've really embedded climate adaptation in all of our decision making and built a strong portfolio in the space. We're proud of that, and we're proud to present 3 of the most exciting innovation within that portfolio. Thanks. Over to you, Sujin. Oh, sorry. Next slide. It's a summary of our impact. To date, we have invested in 74 innovations. Just taking a step back, this has generated $9 for every dollar we invested. 74 innovation translated into $120 million deployed. And we've really been catalytic. For every dollar we invested, more than $8 have been raised by our portfolio companies. Next slide. As I mentioned, this would have not been possible without our great partners. Their support, thought leadership has been critical to achieve these outcomes. And we're grateful for their continued support and their continuous work on working on these very important and pressing issues with the ultimate goal of achieving large social impact at scale. Thanks. Over to you, Sujin.
Thanks, Francesco. Well, before we begin itself, let us introduce our panelists to you. Today's moderator is Katie, who is the head of ESG and gender co-lead from GIF. Katie leads the environmental, social responsibility, and governance function at GIF, conducting ESG due diligence across our portfolio. Katie also leads our Indo-Pacific office and relocated to Singapore in 2022. Katie is committed to ethical investing, gender equality, and capacity building through portfolio support. Prior to joining GIF in early 2015, Katie worked at Oxfam, GB, CMG, part of IPG, which is the world's leading marketing and comms company, and O2 UK. Katie is a fluent Spanish speaker and holds a master's in science in gender and international relations and an LLB in law. A fun fact is that Katie was trained to be a cook and have a soft spot for chicken rice in Singapore. Next, we have Mayu from BlackRock. Mayu is an engineer and healthcare technology entrepreneur and serves as the CEO and co-founder of BlackRock Technologies. He has dedicated his career to advancing vaccine delivery, leading the development of active cool technology to ensure vaccines reach remote locations without losing efficacy. As a co-inventor of BlackRock's patented Amvilio, the first active cool vaccine carrier to be pre-qualified by the WHO, he is proud to have helped make BlackRock one of India's most recognized medtech startups. He is also a frequent speaker and podcast guest, sharing insights on innovation in vaccines, logistics, and supply chain solutions. A fun fact about Mayu is that he is formerly trained as an automobile engineer, and during college, he used to do motorcycle stunts and have broken over 11 bones, spending a significant amount of time in hospitals. This explains why he's in healthcare. Next, we have Annie from Build Change, and Annie is Build Change's country program manager in Indonesia. She has been at the forefront of numerous large-scale post-disaster recovery and disaster prevention initiatives with a focus on housing and schools in Indonesia and the Philippines. Notably, she has led Build Change's advisory group on climate-resilient retrofitting solutions and played a pivotal role in evaluating the National Housing Subsidy Program in collaboration with the Indonesian Ministry of Housing, identifying key opportunities for advancement across technical, social, financial, and operational challenges. Annie is also an age expert with Green Building Practices certification. She has represented Build Change on local, regional, and international stages and authored notable articles and reports. A fun fact about Annie is that she is a professional Balinese dancer who used to teach dance at the Indonesian embassy when she lived in Singapore. Now she usually practices during the weekend and performs occasionally from time to time. Last but not least, we have Alistair. Alistair is the co-founder and COO of Comunidad. Alistair leads global strategy and operations, driving the growth of Comunidad's climate action across the UK, Europe, and Asia Pacific. With over 15 years of experience in climate resilience, social protection, and digital governance, he spearheads strategic partnerships with governments, corporates, and multilaterals to scale impactful climate and ESG solutions. Holding a master's in community development and advanced studies in social development, Alistair's focus on execution, expansion, and building a strong global ecosystem across the climate tech and ESG landscape. When he's not running a company, Alistair is his 5-year-old son's full-time sitter and driver, which includes swimming and playing tennis with him. Over to you, Katie.
Thanks so much, Sujing. And just a reminder to everyone that's here, as I know that we have a really interesting, different array of participants, but if you have any questions, to drop them into the Q&A at any point. As Francesco spoke to, climate finance is a growing space, which in itself has demonstrated resilience to global crises over the last few years. The Climate Policy Initiative has estimated that funding flows towards climate in 2023 surpassed 1.5 trillion. But as Francesco mentioned, a small amount of this goes towards climate adaptation and resilience. And emerging economies are really who are going to bear the brunt of climate change. So I'm very excited to be speaking with 3 different innovators who are working in this space in different Asian markets, and sort of showcasing that there's a lot of variety and investable opportunities in this space. So to begin with, Maya, can I ask you to introduce BlackFrog?
Yeah, hi. Hi, I'm Mayur Shetty. I'm CEO at BlackFrog Technologies. Very nice to be here. Very nice to speak to all of you today. BlackFrog is a healthcare technology startup company. We're based in India. We work on developing precision refrigeration solutions specifically catered to healthcare. And our flagship product is called Embolio, which is a portable medical grade refrigerator system, which is meant for transport of thermally sensitive biologicals in the last mile. I'll very quickly touch upon the broader context, the challenge, and the problem that we've taken on at BlackFrog. The pharmaceutical cold chain is considered as one of the most complex supply chains today, where every small molecule or a vaccine has to be manufactured in a very remote location and has to reach far corners of the earth while being maintained in strict and precise temperature control up until it is administered. This is a challenge, especially in the global south, as we rely on ice-based carriers, ice packs and gel packs to carry vaccines to rural and remote areas where the ice packs end up melting or the ice packs end up freezing the vaccines, rendering them ineffective. Even diagnostic samples, every time you go for a test, the sample that is collected from your either blood sample, nasal, throat swabs, they have to go back to the diagnostic facility again in the same appropriate temperature conditions. And this is the broader problem, and we took about 4.5 years of rigorous R&D to develop our flagship product called Embolio. Embolio is a portable and rugged battery-powered system that can maintain a preset temperature for about 15 to 20 hours in the field. It's a battery-powered system that you can wear as a backpack or as a sling bag. It holds about 1.5 liters of contents in them. This is a patented technology that we've developed. We operate an ISO 13485 and 9001 certified medical device manufacturing facility today. The device operates on a technology called solid state cooling. It has an inbuilt GSM GPS system on board. So when vaccines are being carried to rural areas, you're able to monitor where is the asset going, who is getting immunized, who is being left out. We've had significant success in the Indian subcontinent delivering vaccines. Just in Northeast India alone, in the remote parts, we've helped deliver over 200,000 doses of vaccines to very rural and hard to reach areas. We've helped carry vaccines on dinghies, on motorboats, across the backpack, over the hills. This is something that we are now commercializing across Africa. We were the first product pre-qualified by WHO, certified by WHO as an active cooled vaccine carrier, as a slow phased out replacement to the traditional ice-based carriers. We've started our work right now in Africa. We've started with Kenya, Nigeria, Tanzania, and also in the Fiji Islands. You can see the pictures in the bottom where health workers carry Embolio, and in the bottom right image where we provide portable solar panels as well. These kind of fold into a briefcase that the health workers are able to carry into remote immunization sites. So she's able to open them up, plug them in, and we build all of these peripherals, and now we're building a larger portfolio of medical cold chain products as well. In terms of our fundraising, we have done a we got our pre-qualification last year, but we've been selling in small volumes to other allied markets like primary health centers for transport of blood, culture, serum, sputum, any other biologicals that need cold chain. We've done a cumulative revenue of $1.2 million. We've done 3 rounds of equity financing in the past, small rounds. Now we're doing our 4th round. For this 4th round, we are raising $2.4 million. The round is being led by Global Innovation Fund and being co-invested by Rainmatter Foundation, another nonprofit in India, and the Manipal Education and Medical Group, which is one of India's largest hospital chains today. We have a commitment of $1.4 million. So we are looking at topping it up with another additional $1 million to make it a full 2.4 and close the round. We project a revenue of $4 million by 2028, and by 2030, we seek to be Asia's largest medical refrigeration company. And with this fundraise right now, we're set to look at 3 objectives. One is to broaden our cold chain offerings. We're looking at temperature monitoring solutions, larger systems. We are presently transporting corneal tissues, again, require very strict temperature control before they go for transplant. We want to increase the capacity of our refrigeration so that we're able to transport lung, kidney, liver, larger organs as well. The second one is scaling up our manufacturing facility. We want to invest in automation, bring better field quality and reliability over the years. The third one is, of course, to give a global expansion to our current offering, which is Embolio. We've already started presence in 4 new countries. We're doing pilot deployments, and we've got letters of interest from both Kenya and Nigeria for rolling it up in 3 counties of Kenya and 4 states of Nigeria. So part of that, we want to kind of double down on our present offerings as well. Love to take any questions in the panel discussion as well. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Katie, for having us and talk about BlackRock. Thank you so much.
No, it's our absolute pleasure. And I already have so many questions I want to pick up on, but we will move over to Annie to speak about bill change.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Global Innovation Fund, for giving us the opportunity to share our work. So BioChain is a global leader in system change for resilient housing. So our engineers, builders, coders, and advocates and lending partners are trying to provide urgently needed housing solutions to the world's most disaster-prone countries, including Indonesia. So our vision is to make every home resilient. And so BioChain has been operating in Indonesia for over 20 years, following the 2004 tsunami in the Indian Ocean. And so since then, we have worked across the country to strengthen housing and improve construction standard, and reaching up to 450,000 people. And so through the partnership with the government and institutions like the Global Innovation Fund, BioChain influences national housing subsidy programs, improving housing quality and expanded access to retrofit financing, and supported green climate resilient housing initiative. As we know that Indonesia is a country surrounded by many active faults and is one of the most seismically active countries in the world. And we face over 300 disasters every year. And so climate-related disaster is made up for 70% of them. And so with the support from the Global Innovation Fund, BioChain is currently working with the local microfinance institution. We try to expand access to financing for home strengthening and climate adaptation upgrades. In Indonesia, we partner with Komida, all-woman member, a woman-centered local MFI, train, and then we train their staff and try to engage directly with the homeowners to promote the heat stress adaptation home improvement. So our project focus on extreme heat adaptation to ensure the MFI clients that living on less than $5 a day have access to technical knowledge and able to make an affordable investment to improve their heat stress adaptation condition in their homes. Our approach is we provide the homeowners with technical assessment and also support them with making well-informed, more informed decision making in making home upgrades that focusing on resilient and climate adaptation. And our technical training also provide the MFI loan officer to also support them with the basic understanding on good and proper construction practices, including the proper implementation of heat adaptation strategies that they could do to support their members. And in order, as we know that the housing, technical assistance support may not always be available and not widely available in the housing finance sector. And so BuildChange also in this project funded by the Global Innovation Fund, we also try to leveraging and utilize our digital platform called BuildChange Technical Assistance Platform to enable the MFI partner to provide technical assistance on climate resilient upgrades for their members. And so we have, for the past 6 months, we have conducted like a testing phase and to test some of the innovation and solution for heat stress adaptation, as well as testing whether it's under the affordability level of people in community living less than $5 a day. And based on that output, we integrate a set of simple questions that could help the loan officer to generate customized recommendation and cost estimate that they can inform and discuss together with the homeowners what would be the best intervention options that are affordable for them. And so, yeah, by the end of the project, what we would like to see is that a model of heat adaptation housing that is effective, affordable, and can subsequently be scaled by our MFI partner with limited ongoing support. I think that's all from BuildChange. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks so much, Amy. And finally, Alistair, I will pass to you to introduce the work at Comunidad.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alistair. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Comunidad. Thank you so much for inviting us to this webinar. And I would like to congratulate BlackFrog and BuildChange for their amazing work and for sharing your work on this platform. So we're Comunidad. So we're a climate action platform. So we're a software company that aims to reduce emissions and prepare for climate disasters. So we work both with private companies and governments. So just to give a quick overview of the capacity of the platform, we started with providing localized early warning systems for different cities and municipalities in the Philippines. And now we're scaling these initiatives to the wider Asia Pacific region. But last year, we decided to pivot and add more tools since we've recognized that climate action is not really limited to adaptation, which not to minimize its priority, but it's a wider range of, compliance needs, short-term needs, long-term needs. So we've integrated the mitigation aspect as well, which is more in the ESG and sustainability, accounting for greenhouse gas emissions, automating sustainability reports to help governments establish their country frameworks to help companies comply with these initiatives, and also climate risk. So this is an evolving need now, which a lot of frameworks such as the TCFD requires. So we also provide different kinds of scenario analysis, different kinds of damage and loss assessments based on long-term climate projections. So our tool, in summary, provides you early warning systems, which is more on the climate adaptation work, which GIF is supporting us on this one, and climate mitigation tools for ESG and sustainability and climate risk. So our parent company is based in Singapore. Most of our operations is based here in Manila, in the Philippines, around 80%. We have a subsidiary in UK that caters to the European market. And we recently acquired a company in Luxembourg called Databorg Systems that provides rainfall intelligence using satellite dishes. So Just to share its impact, instead of procuring large radar systems, Data Board was able to develop an algorithm to create an alternative rainfall radar just based on the local satellite cable dishes that we have. So it's really amazing to make rainfall data more accessible. So our mission in terms of impact and adaptation is to really empower communities to adapt and to thrive, to make them more resilient, to make sure that the data that we have not just reaches like the disaster departments, but to ensure that it really reaches the ones who are in need, who are vulnerable communities, the public, and so on. So that's why we have flexible systems to make this work. And our business actually is, so we started a lot in the B2G space. So we have around 100 local governments now who are subscribed to the system in the Philippines. With the support of GIF in terms of the flexible finance facility, we were able to grow this into different segments, into different regions in the Philippines. That's why we are able to provide more impact and more work in terms of disaster preparedness. Now, in terms of the business side as well, we've recently partnered with the Securities and Exchanges Commission in the Philippines since the country just launched its sustainability reporting framework. So we were the ones who were tapped to digitize the framework for them and allow different kinds of public companies, banks to comply with these different kinds of reporting. So in terms of the market, our main market is here in the Philippines, but we've started having some engagements in the UK for real estate, in Turkey with different kinds of banks, with Asia Pacific, especially Indonesia, in terms of replicating our success with the SEC, with early warning systems in Vietnam as well. So those are some of the expansions activities that we've been having. So in terms of fundraising, we've raised $1 million last 2021. So this was 4 years ago. Our investors were Wavemaker Partners and Asian Development Bank Ventures. And we did not raise after that in terms of equity. We decided to be more capital efficient and approach the market with with what we have. And GIF supported us last year with a 500,000 venture debt fund that allowed us to tap public contracts that provides more impact to communities. And with this amount of funding, we were able to grow the business at a $5 million annual recurring revenue as of date. And in terms of projected impact, as mentioned, we have reached 100 cities and local governments in the Philippines, 20 million lives protected in terms of climate adaptation. In terms of our ESG tools, the government, the Securities and Exchanges Commission in the Philippines, we're enabling a digital backbone for them to make the country more sustainable in terms of having these structures in place. So we recently signed a 5-year partnership. And of course, with climate adaptation, the focus is really climate vulnerable communities. So reaching the last mile, providing these warnings, not really like sophisticated scientific warnings, but making sure that the warnings reach them in their language, in SMS, in social media, especially in the Philippines where we use Facebook a lot. So we've integrated our alerts in Facebook. So we needed to be creative in that angle so that we could reach the public. And of course, with this impact, we have documented studies that allowed departments to increase capacity, increase their understanding with disaster risk reduction, in terms of like environmental intelligence, whether that results, of course, to reducing loss. And we're talking about lives here and strengthening resilience, asset protection for governments and businesses. So that's a quick intro of Comunidad. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Alistair. And I think maybe it's useful to start. You've all touched upon it in your work, and I think it's as a funder and an investor, it's one of the things when we're trying to explain what we're sourcing for, that sometimes we get sort of blank faces looking back at us, sort of what is meant by climate resilience. And I think it would be really useful to hear from all of you, as you sort of have described that you're working in very different sectors. How do you define resilience in your work? And also what makes your approach unique? And I will start with Alistair, as you went last time.
Thank you, Katie. So, for us, I think we define resilience as communities being able to prepare. I think we're not really waiting for like this a disaster to happen already, like so to determine that they're resilient. So I think for us, it's equipping them really with the tools that they need, and at the same time for them to be because I mean we're in tech, we're in software, for them to be highly comfortable with using these tools because it makes their lives easier actually. So just a quick example on that one. Before, warning systems were defined here as just putting a sensor, let's say a rain gauge, an air quality sensor, and then that's the warning system that you have. But it just provides you like a 5-minute observation data. It doesn't provide you like the forecast, what will happen in the next 7 days, 14 days. It doesn't reach the public too. So I think on our side, it's really, equipping them with tools and at the same time, them being comfortable with these tools that allows them to be more prepared in terms of decision making and at the same time protecting their assets and, the lives of their citizens. So I think on our side, with our practice, that's how we define resilience.
Thanks so much. And Mayu, same question to you.
Yeah, sure. So our focus when we developed Embolio was to kind of make it was to ensure that the technology was completely green. It's a refrigeration system, and refrigeration conventionally has not been very clean, right? We use refrigerants, noxious coolants, greenhouse gases. So we don't use any of those in our technology. It's completely green, solid state cooling with no moving parts or no gases, refrigerants. But it's also highly energy efficient. The entire product consumes a meager 24 watts of power, which is probably less than the light bulb above me right now, and that's important for a health center. But we're also at the very center of building climate resilient health systems because and while it's a refrigeration system which is used for carrying vaccines outside, it also you can plug it in and keep it running as a standalone refrigerator. And we saw this in Northeast India. There was some in 2022 there was a lot of flooding in Northeast India, which kind of cut off the entirety of the grid. So health centers essentially had no access to power. So these health centers, a few of them could pull out Embolio, which had charge in them, and they were able to save about 3 pints of blood bags in every health center. So essentially, we are ensuring that health centers continue their health services. There is cold chain regardless of whether there is calamities which are rising because of climate change now, right? So we're at that forefront of ensuring climate resilient health systems are being built. We provide portable solar panels and completely off the grid solutions to ensure that around the clock there is continued health services.
Thank you. And yeah, thanks for the tangible examples too. I think it really helps to bring it to life as well. Annie, same question to you.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. And I like the answer from Mayur and Alistair with regards to the capacitating the local community. And I guess that resonates well with our definition of resilience. As I see that resilience, I would say it can be like a short to medium term implementation or goal, which is through how we try to build the coping strategy and adaptation strategy to the community. For instance, like we're providing intervention, what will be the best and suitable adaptation intervention that we could try in order to reduce the risk. And at the longer term, it's more on the transformational, which is more into systemic changes like influencing the regulations as well as the whole supply chains of resilient housing in the country. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think all of you have brought sort of an interesting dynamic out of sort of how there's the individual and then the systems level and sort of how they interact with each other too, and the different partners that are key to playing a role with that. I wonder if I can ask you, how do you measure how your interventions are strengthening resilience at the different levels themselves? And Maya, I'll start with you.
Yeah. So another aspect of climate change is, I mean, it's increasing the number of communicable diseases now, right? I mean, if COVID has taught us anything, it's that there's always a risk that a small epidemic can become a large pandemic, and we keep seeing that in hotspots across the global south, especially in northern India itself. We've had small measles outbreak, even in the US for that matter, where small outbreak kind of turn into a larger problem, right? So, and immunization services are very critical now. We've realized the value of vaccines post-COVID, and something that we've been able to directly measure is the number of doses that we're able to provide. One, on the effectiveness of the dose, because we conduct these contrasting studies. We put wireless temperature sensors inside the conventional ice boxes, and we see they're grossly non-compliant. We've seen 3-4 hours of freezing of vaccines being administered. I mean, these are actually given to live infants, and we know that they're not producing that immunogenicity. It's lost the potency, so it's essentially like administering saline. And as opposed to our intervention where we're able to monitor, we bring in that accountability, ensuring that we know what temperature it is. In case it's not within that safe temperature, you provide an alert mechanism saying don't administer these vaccines, right? So that's the first bit of how we measure this. But also, like I was mentioning about the increased number of doses with the ice boxes, you have a limited amount of time of how many kids you can immunize in a particular day. Now you're able to double it, triple it as well. We've received testimonials from the field where vaccines are being taken into very remote areas where otherwise they would be discarded at the end of the day. You can't safely bring it back. Now, because of an active cooler where you have a portable solar panel, you plug it in, it keeps running, and your chances of reaching zero-dose children is much higher. We're able to reach more kids who've never received any vaccines. So that's essentially how we measure our intervention.
Thank you very much. And I will go to Annie next. And I will say to everyone that I was very fortunate to actually be visiting Build Change when they were starting to look at sort of the measurement piece. So I'm very excited to hear the answer as well.
Okay, Katie. For our project in Indonesia, I would say how we define the how we measure our impact is we as we know that the target our target population is the one that living less than $5 a day. Two key indicators that we consider is whether is the intervention, the heat stress adaptation intervention is really effective to reduce the indoor heat stress, but also whether it's affordable for that segment of populations. And so with regards to the first indicators, whether it's effective enough, so we are conducting like a technical or environmental measurement, which is the more, we call it objective measurements, when we measure before and after putting the intervention, and we use and we try to classify in terms of marginal improvement, whether it's noticeable, whether it's give significant or even transformative improvement. And that's on the objective measurement. And then we also try to provide some like a comprehensive evaluation. And so in the coming months and in the next 3 months, we would like to do some subjective or survey to this heat stress adaptation clients, whether they actually feeling changes or any improvement, and we would like to know whether it tally with the technical measurement that we get. And lastly, that's the indicator that we would like to see whether it's effective enough. And the last one is whether it's affordable enough. And we always try to see and test, because during the testing phase, we also understand there are some innovations or strategies that maybe well beyond the affordability level, and also sometimes the challenges are the materials are not widely available in that region. And so during the testing phase, we were able to somehow learn and refine what would be the best within the affordability bracket of that. So that's how we try to measure our impact.
Great, thanks so much, Annie. And then Alistair, over to you. And we've also had a question that people are particularly interested in understanding how you sort of measure the social impact sort of at the beneficiary level as well. So just to flag if you can touch on that in your response. And another reminder to anyone who is in the audience to please share any questions, and we will open up the floor later. But if they weave into what we're already planning to discuss, we will bring it in as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. So for us, it starts really on the onboarding process, right? So I'll be specific more on the adaptation side, which is more on the provision of early warnings for local governments. So on the onboarding side, of course, it's a new practice that we're providing training for. So the main beneficiaries actually of our system is the departments. So we're talking about the safety officers, disaster risk reduction management officers. So they undergo a pre-test and then post-test, which are, very basic M&E monitoring and evaluation mechanisms. So they undergo these things for us to ensure that, of course, it's not just the product that we've provided, with, but it's also the capacities that we've been um, enabling them as well. And over the course of time, of course, we have regular meetings with these departments for fine tuning of the system primarily, since of course it needs to work well. We're talking about typhoons, rainfall, very severe weather and hazards, so it needs fine tuning. So we have regular meetings wherein there's some, it's not perfect science. So sometimes they don't really understand the data, or, there's some discrepancies in terms of like action points. So we have these regular touch point meetings, but this is more in the institutional side. But for the actual beneficiaries, which are the end users, so as mentioned, we've enabled a public website for each city, public apps for each citizen to download in order for them to have these daily alerts within their, we call it barangay. So it's a village in the Philippines. So everyone has their localized alerts if you're a citizen of that city that Comunidad is providing service for. So with specific projects that we went through in terms of like a formal M&D process. So when we had studies related to fishermen in terms of coastal communities. So they use our apps before it was very indigenous, their practices. So they just look at the sky, and then, with indigenous DRR practices, disaster risk reduction practices, they decide if they will go fishing or not. But with the Comunidad tool, which is in Tagalog as well, in our local language, we provide them SMS alerts and also the access to the app. And now they get to see at least if it has color threshold. So if it's at least orange or red in terms of like wave height, wave data, then of course they decide not to go through it. Potentially, of course, saving their lives in terms of we're talking about severe risk. We've also trickled down these initiatives to schools. So especially now in the Philippines, especially during the months of March to May, our heat index reaches around 50 Celsius. So it's really high. They result to blended learning, online learning. So our system is also being used by schools to cancel classes, to decide on these things. And also at the village level. So I think, of course, if we're talking about early warnings, it's usually in the city command centers, like the big screens that, they monitor the whole city. I think a good impact there is really we've localized these centers because we're a software into smart televisions in the local village so that they also have their own dashboards that they could check specific to their village. So it's now village. They don't really depend now on the city, but it's more on having them own their responsibilities in terms of disaster risk reduction as well within the villages. But yeah, we've documented a lot of studies that showed qualitative impact, quantitative impact as well with the number of beneficiaries that we've reached. So those are just some of the concrete examples on how we were really able to reach the last mile in terms of providing these alerts. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Another point I would quite like to touch on whilst we've got the three of you here is, as Francesco mentioned earlier, we can offer different kinds of financial instruments and different kind of funding. And what is really great about having you three is that you've all received a different form of funding from GIS. So would you be able to speak to a bit about what funding it is that you did receive? I know you touched about it a little bit earlier on in your presentations. And then also how this has helped you to scale and or how it will help you to scale down the line, obviously, with some that are newer entries to our portfolio. And I will start with you, Annie.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah. So with the support from the Global Innovation Fund, Buildchains has been actually started working on the microfinance housing in the Philippines for the past 5 years. But then through the Global Innovation Fund that we started to build this climate resilient housing programs and working with the microfinance institution Komida that enables by this funding. And so through this funding, we aim that to support the Komida to establish a heat stress adaptation product, because at the moment they only have the home renovation loan product, but never really have any aspect that integrate to building the resilience or preparing their members to withstand any climate risks in the future, including the extreme heat. And so through this partnership with Komida and the Global Innovation Fund, we agreed to start with some testing, because this is like Biogen started with testing some prototype and testing whether it's effective enough. And at the same time, we also conducted a survey with Komida to their members to understand better in terms of the perceptions on extreme heat and the extreme heat impact to their livelihood and health, as well as their willingness to pay. And especially that we would also wanted to make sure that the product of this heat stress adaptation is within the affordability bracket for the member living on less than $5 a day. And so at the moment, Komida has started to roll out the product just the past 2 months, and they have started to gather about 50 first adopters or clients, and they are currently and there are more waiting in line for their loan to be approved by Komida. And so what we'd like to see and hope by the end of this year is to understand better and to refine better the heat stress adaptation strategy, whether it's proven to be effective, and as well meet the appetite of the members itself, because we also wanted to know whether it's actually between the demand and the supply they have a match, something like that. Thanks, Katie.
Right. Thanks so much, Annie. And yeah, I think we had a question through the chat about the investment, and GIF's grant went directly to Build Change itself to sort of de-risk this. But it's an interesting example where the scale up, in a way, is sort of independent from Build Change itself. And yeah, so we're very excited to sort of hear the early results and see where it goes. Alistair, I will pass over to you.
Sure. So for Comunidad, GIF invested in a venture debt financing. So it really helped us because we were scaling on the government sector. So the financing from GIF is actually for the public sector projects. And of course, with public sector projects, there comes the impact, on helping these communities who are in need. So the thing is, for us, the problem that we've encountered since we can only do so much in terms of catering to some projects. And I think it was the year before GIF invested that we have passed on a lot of opportunities because, we cannot really cater it in terms of capital, in terms of operations. So what GIF did was provide us an invoice facility wherein we could provide awarded contracts, and then GIF finances a portion, most of the contract amount. And that really allowed us to be more flexible in getting more projects in terms of the public sector. Because in terms of the public sector, especially in the Philippines, it gets a little complex in terms of long procurement cycles, very delayed payments. So to be honest, we've experienced payments in 6 months, 9 months to a year. And of course, when you've allotted resources on that, there comes another batch of 5 to 10 projects wherein we cannot say no, right? Of course, we're running a business, and then at the same time, we want to get those projects too, which of course will generate us revenue. So we had a hard time before the financing, but when the financing came, it allowed us to be more flexible. So of course, even if it's unpaid, GIF provides the facility so we can cater to more projects, we can cater to more scale. And of course, given the agreements with the investors that we have an impact framework that we need to adhere to, we really ensure that, of course, if there's more projects, more government contracts, there's more people that that we provide impact and service to these citizens. So that's how the GIF financing helped us, and it's a really nice facility for us to really scale, especially on the climate adaptation side of our business. Yeah.
No, thanks for that, Alistair. And I think at the time, obviously, we had been speaking for a while to sort of determine what it would look like, but your partnership with government was very key to us as well. So we're happy that we found a good way that sort of works for both sides. And Maya, I know you are sort of our first investment under the new Thrive vehicle, so we're sort of newer to our portfolio, but would love to hear sort of what type of funding you received and sort of how it will help you scale as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Thrive Fund was also about building climate resilient systems, and that's something that we had already done in India. We had over 1,200 units live in India, a little bit in Nepal as well, some in Middle East. So we had demonstrated the product market fit. We created tangible social impact, and we were part of building climate resilient health systems, not just from an immunization standpoint, but transport of or storage of all other biologicals like antivenoms, serums, sputums, even oxytocin that's necessary during childbirth. Again, very temperature sensitive. It needs to be carried to remote locations when there are home deliveries. So this I think we spent a significant amount of time in India, and we and the next logical step was to replicate this across Africa. And Africa has this unique challenge of power accessibility. About 13% of health centers across Africa have no power, and over 74% of health centers have intermittent power. So maintaining cold chain, ensuring access to vaccines has been tricky, and that's a well addressed issue. So this investment is helping us scale our operations now. We've already started our work in Kenya, Nigeria, and Tanzania. We've been working since March. About 25 units are already in the field, and thanks to GIF's investment, we're with the pre-Series A investment. My team has completed the training, and even the monitoring and evaluation part is complete right now. The Ministry of Health is super keen on scaling this up to 100 units right now. Two other counties have signed on to it. UNICEF is the world's largest buyer of vaccines and vaccine cold chain equipment. They're doing a pilot in Nigeria. My program management team is there right now. They're conducting the trainings there. So that's the next step for us. I mean, we want to, with the GIF investment, we want to conduct this pilot so that the ministries of health they're familiar with the product, they understand the technology and why there needs to be a shift away from these rudimentary cold chain systems into accountable systems, so that then they can look at development agencies, seek more financing to scale it across country level. That's what we're up to.
Very exciting, and yeah, wow, sort of a completely different market, and very exciting to sort of see how the proof of concept. You've touched on something there that I think is quite interesting as well, which is sort of the role of partnerships for scale and sort of the entry points to new market. I guess sort of linked to this is sort of how do you ensure financial sustainability and social impact at scale, and what are the critical steps, like whether it is partnership or something like that. And Maya, because you just spoke, I will pass it back to you as it sort of leads nicely from what you said.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, so part of our strategy moving ahead, which is also about building resilience for ourselves, is that we're kind of allocating a portion of our resources, sales resources, into the private sector. We've been selling to pharma companies, life sciences, diagnostics, contract research organizations who need cold chain equipment. And this is to kind of ensure that we overcome these ups and downs of the global health funding space, where, I mean, not just with USAID moving out, but the programmatic fund, immunization specifically, has a lot of ups and downs. To kind of mitigate that, we're looking at private sector where the sales process is a lot simpler. The payment channels are much easier. So we're able to kind of keep our revenue coming in so that we can do what we do best. I mean, we can ensure that we create social impact and we work with government agencies, ensure immunization reaches far corners, while we're also financially sustainable through these B2B channels. So that's part of our diversification moving ahead right now to kind of build that financial resilience for ourselves.
No, thank you. And I guess I will also tackle on part B question, which I think is useful for the audience, which is, do you have any current fundraising needs or any kind of ask from the audience that perhaps if there's someone here who can follow up after?
Yeah, so we are closing our pre-series A right now, which is for $2.4 million. We already got a commitment and closed $1.4 million with GIF leading the round and Rain Matter Foundation and Manipal Education and Medical Group co-investing in the same round. So we have 1 million left in this particular round that we seek to keep open for another 4 to 6 months. We would love to speak to any impact investors, anybody who has a focus or mandate on improving global health. That's the health is our primary it's the focus area for us. So we are at that intersection of technology and healthcare. We would love to speak to anybody. Maybe you could reach out directly to us through blackfrog.in or through JF. Would love to hear any thoughts or any questions as well. Thank you, Katie.
Great, thanks, Maya. And Alistair, same question to you.
Thank you. For the partnership, so what we did was to really establish channels. So because I mean, of course, given expansion efforts, we've had trial and error in terms of like before we were very active in some locations. We kept on burning money and it did not give us, good results. We go to another country and then it happens again. So what we did in order to really optimize in terms of the cost is to really establish channels, since of course our platform is really flexible in terms of adapting into like country context. So for example, in the UK, we've developed reseller agreements. For example, in Turkey, we've developed channels on these countries and iterate the product based on local language, based on local regulations, and especially with APAC too, we've developed these different channels. So of course, these channels allows us to really have footprint and at the same time not really hire our own resources for now, right? While we are assessing the market, if it really works for us. But the good thing is we've been having some success with this model. And of course, we're also currently raising in order to boost our small wins in outside Philippines, especially with APAC as a priority market. So that's why we're raising now. And at the same time, with regards to it's not just really partners, but also key people that act as advisors too for us on a per country context. Lots of networks. So we've kind of relied on a robust network in terms of, especially in Asia, wherein it's highly relationship driven. A lot of things, comes to which like who knows who in terms of like the sector you're tapping. If you want to go into banks, you should talk to these agencies. If you want to go into like the energy sector and so on. So that's sort of our model for now. And we're trying to boost that by fundraising to have more local resources for us to really scale in these markets. So in APAC, for example, we'll be closing projects in Vietnam. We're active in Indonesia. We just had a roadshow in Malaysia, in Thailand. We're talking to clients now, but of course, we don't really have local people there. So we're relying on partners to really facilitate things for us. But so far, at least for the market entry side, that's our strategy. But of course, when we have like more clients, that's the time we really boost our own resources for these countries. And I think to tap on the fundraising as well. So similar to Mayur, we also have our own fundraising initiatives for now. The purpose, since I think I've mentioned before, we started with the government side of projects, but since we pivoted to integrate ESG and sustainability, climate risk, there's a lot of demand now for us to really provide compliance tools. And I think our partnership with the Securities and Exchanges Commission in the Philippines provided a good benchmark for APAC. So we're also now talking to OJK in Indonesia to automate these reports for sustainability reporting. So this is more on the private sector side of our business. So we're currently raising to, of course, with the climate adaptation in government, it continues to grow for us. In terms of the private sector, we really want to replicate the success that we've had here. Since we have similar needs in terms of the markets that we're tapping, and at the same time, really boost on the SAC partnership because it allows us to be the reputable provider for sustainability solutions in Philippines as well. So that's the diversification that we're boosting. I mean, we've been very successful with the government side, with GIF supporting us too, the impact side. GIF has been very supportive in terms of introducing us to the different kinds of networks. So we even landed a client because of some introductions from GIF. So, it's been really helpful to Comunidad in terms of the network. So those are just some examples that we have in terms of the partnerships and the current fundraise that we're raising. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Alistair. And it's our pleasure. We aim to do what we can to help our portfolio. So whenever there are requests, please do share. And Annie, the same question to you.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. So the way how we try to ensure in terms of financial sustainability and impact scaling. So at the initial phase, we understand that to be able to a product to be sustained, it needs to be have enough demand. And in order to have that, we have to somehow able to offer a good product that is effective enough to improve the extreme heat situation inside the homes. And so once we pass that stage, we see that to ensure the sustainability and building the demand slowly, that we see the opportunity that needs to be linked with other home financing product within that institution itself. So for instance, with Komida, they have slowly started to introduce to applicants that apply for home renovation product to also implement heat adaptation. And in terms that so far, about almost nearly 40% of the home renovation clients of Komida also taken heat stress adaptation. So that's one of the good things that we would like to see slowly. In the end, it's going to be institutionalized within the Komida itself. To also a part of the scaling process, we see an opportunity and has something that we need to be pursued together is to how to be able to link the resilient housing financing program to other housing microfinance program broadly, whether through local banks or government banks, and also link it with the National Housing Subsidy Program. And yeah, I think for the past few months, Komida is currently working with the government with regards to how to be able to integrate their resilient housing program with the National Housing Subsidy Program. So that's part of the plan of sustainability and scaling up that the Komida is currently doing, Katie.
Great, no, thank you. And I guess, yeah, from Build Change's side, do you have any funding asks, or I guess all for Komida side too?
Yeah, we often and actively looking for funding, and especially because there's a lot of so throughout our assessment for the past 6 months, we've been so happy that many are interested in doing and be excited on heat stress adaptation. But on the other hand, we also see some how to say like gaps, like when some of the improvements somehow we a bit concerned that it could increase the risk of other disaster or hazards such as earthquakes. For instance, in a small example, if they add windows, but then because it's gonna somehow weaken the wall if it's not properly enforced, and we're afraid that somehow in the next earthquake it could somehow weaken the housing and make the houses in a higher risk than before. So we are looking forward and actively find a way in how to be able to provide a more comprehensive resilient housing product to the partner. And we hope that yeah, we always open for funding opportunities for that reason.
Great, thanks, Annie. And yeah, and if anyone in the audience is interested, I mean, I'm sure you can find people on LinkedIn or their website, or if you have a contact at GIF, we'll be happy to facilitate the introduction. This brings us to the end of sort of our formal question time, but we've had quite a few come through the chat. I never think it's fair for me to assign who's going to answer, so I'll let you self-select. But I think there's sort of been a couple of comments or saying that, it's really great to hear about the different models and that there is sort of sustainable change through what you're doing. But sort of there's been one comment that sort of brought up, and particularly Alistair, but I think it relates to everyone about difficulties working with governments or other partners. And I guess if any of you have any particular advice for anyone working in this space, this is an opportunity to share. Or maybe I will have to pick on one. You're not going to do it. Alistair, I guess, yeah, if you could give us some sort of tips about working with the government that you would have for others. Obviously, they're all unique circumstances.
Yeah, so it's really I think it's the procurement process that's a bit complex. So of course it depends on it depends on the country. We have worked before with governments outside of Philippines where it's straightforward, but here of course in our main market in the Philippines it has to go through a lot, so even before you get to like participate in a tender, there's a lot of like local requirements that they need. So we're talking about technical, of course, they have to assess your capability. We're talking about the eligibility, all of your financials, all of your registrations and everything. And of course, we're also looking at the financial capacity. So that's why even before you participate, they also look at your management accounts to see if you could really provide the service. So on that side, right? I mean, even if you have the service, you have to like have a qualification. And it's also difficult for us since, of course, our parent company is in Singapore. A lot of like requirements are 60% local here. So you really need to partner wherein these other local organizations are already accredited in terms of procurement. So it's much more easy for us to really scale when we enable different kinds of channels. And we're talking about Philippines, right? So we're not like a landlocked country too that, that's easy to, I mean, if we're talking about road shows, our salespeople tend to fly out. If we're talking about, I think it's Mayur, it's similar in India. It's really far from each other. I think in Indonesia too, it's very big in terms of if you want to scale, right? So it's really I mean most of our clients are in Manila. I think 11 out of the 16 cities in Manila are our clients already, and the nearby cities. Since of course they benchmark in our cities in Manila and so on. But if we're talking about going to the Visayas regions, going to the Mindanao regions, we have to fly out. So establishing a good channel which is already established locally. Since I think just to provide context, right? So Philippines has a local government code wherein each city has their own autonomy in terms of like procuring and everything. So, and we're talking about 1,600 cities which has their own systems in place. So it's not straightforward. You really have to work with locally. And you really have, especially for us, we cannot, it's not like SaaS where you just pay through like card and then they buy it, you provide an invoice and everything. No, it's really difficult. You need to have a local accredited reseller or provider to really boost us in terms of like reaching all of these cities. I mean, we can do it on our own, but it will not be efficient enough, especially with how the system works. Unlike in others, wherein it's much more straightforward, we put a proposal out and then they buy it and then that's it. So it's just the context here is a bit tricky, and I'm not saying it's the same for everyone, but here we need the channels to make it work. Yeah.
Yes, you're reminding me of looking into a lot about the localized government of the Philippines. But I think, you brought up a really good point that sort of has peppered out throughout the conversation, which is about the importance of partnership and what a key role they play in scale. And we've had another question come through that's about scale as well, which is particularly asking about the trade-offs between being sort of locally contextualized, but also being geared for scale, and how this looks like in practice. And also sort of what work you're doing with local partners or communities to finesse your solutions, but also building them for scale. Maya, I'm going to go to you first, I think, because sort of you spoke quite a bit about sort of the partnerships that you've already sort of been in, and particularly moving into new markets. And so if you could elaborate a bit more on that, that would be great.
Yeah, certainly. Actually, honestly, we were fortunate enough not to have this particular problem. I mean, this is generally a problem with a lot of medical devices where they're designed for one particular geography or one health context, right? I mean, interestingly, with immunization, it's fairly centralized. All of the country, all of the, at least all of the global south, they kind of follow suit from WHO itself. All of the, everything from the syringes, needles, the cartons, the refrigerated trucks, refrigerated cargo airplanes, everything has to be pre-qualified by WHO, and the same standard is followed across 193 UN countries. So we were able to, I mean, and that made even designing the product fairly straightforward because the specifications were very clearly laid out by WHO. So my R&D team, we could just kind of close all the doors and go about demonstrating that the proof of principle works, right? We had to overcome this physics barrier of creating an energy efficient refrigeration system. That was the objective for us, and then the ergonomics kind of followed by itself. So in that regard, I mean, we could kind of build something that worked in India, and it's fairly easily being replicated across Africa. Honestly, what we built for India is actually making more sense for we built a backpack mounted refrigerator. And in India, the women wear sari, right? So when they wear sari, it becomes tricky to wear backpack. And when we took it to Africa, and so we made an option of a sling bag as well, so you can put it on one shoulder. Then when we took it to Africa, we realized most of the cold chain technicians are men, so they prefer backpack. So that worked out much better there. So in that, I mean, we didn't really have to customize it specifically for geographies as such. We were kind of lucky enough to have a uniform structure, unlike most other medical devices space.
Yeah, no, and that's very interesting too, though, because the gender lens with which you have applied to do it and the delivery models, I guess, is where there's been a bit more sort of having to think about it. So whilst you do sometimes assume things in healthcare are maybe more applicable across the board, that perhaps, you know, you do really need to have that context. Annie, I'd also like to speak to you about this a bit too, because obviously you've done work in the Philippines, or your organization has as well. And so thinking about yeah, sort of both when you think about scaling this work across Indonesia, you know, Alistair mentioned as well, sort of both of you are huge geographies with lots of islands. Like, how do you think about that, and how much is sort of the local context that can be adapted for scale versus thinking about?
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, so Bilchens has been fortunate enough for us because we have a few different projects that require us to implement a few different approaches, such as with the community directly, with some of the development organization, and with USAID. Last time we had a more on a community-led approach where we started with learning first what kind of adaptation that the community has been doing for the climate risk and any earthquake risk or any disaster risk that they have faced. And from there, we try to understand what will be the local practicality and preference, such as in terms of the design or home design preferences that it's going to be influencing with the heat trap adaptation that we're offering. So for instance, like recently, we came across some region that they actually do not like to open windows. So instead, they prefer to have more like a enclosed window and things like that, because for like they don't really like be open to the community because it's quite enclosed village and things like that. So on that aspect, we consider a different heat stress adaptation that might be work in one area. So it's more like locally context. But on the other hand, with the government and Ministry of Housing, we currently supporting the government in preparing the Indonesia Green Affordable Housing Program, where that through they try to institutionalize green subsidy program to the local banks, where any low-income household that gonna apply for mortgage, they can claim for the subsidy or financing if they implement certain heat adaptation. So what we learned from that is that it seems like from the housing financing aspect, both on private sector and public sector, for instance, private MFI or Komida or banks, and also public sector, they have a very unprepared technical assistant team, and which is we know that it's may not. We sure that in the financing sector, they don't have really like a dedicated technical people on the ground or to support the quality enforcement. So I guess our lesson learned is moving forward and how to be able to somehow transform and transfer the knowledge of the local understanding, local capacity to the national housing program, and how to be able to build the technical capacity building that could cover both the locality and the national regulation that apply. So it seems like we see some on top of that, we see the umbrella or the regulatory framework. We see there's a mismatch between what the national government stipulates and what the locality trying to aim when they build their homes.
No, thank you. And I'm just conscious of time. So I think, Alistair, you've spoken about it a bit before, so I might move to another question that we've had from the audience. And this will probably be our last one as we sort of wrap things up. But what would your call to action be for the audience, or what is an ask that you would have? Alistair, you can go first.
Sure. Again, thank you very much for inviting us to this webinar. I think it's a great platform for us to really showcase what we do. I think for the audience, I think it's two items for me. So I think a strategic partnership, if you're willing to support what we do. Of course, we could have sessions wherein we could make you understand more what we do in terms of our products, our impact. We're very happy to engage in these conversations for potential partnerships and collaboration. And I think another would be also on the fundraising aspect, similar to GIF, wherein these investors are supporting us. So if you would like to support our work as well, would be happy to pitch, would be happy to send you information to provide you context on what we are trying to build, both impact-wise and business-wise. So I think for me, that's the two main things for the audience. So strategic partnerships for new markets, for existing work that we do, and then fundraising. Thank you.
Maya?
Yeah, certainly. I think my call to action for everybody would be to keep the conversation going on specifically on climate change mitigation. I think it's kind of taking the backseat today with all the things happening across the globe. It's important for all organizations, small and large, to kind of come together because we're all in this end of the day. It starts with something as small as shifting away from kerosene lamps in health center into solar-powered health lamps, all the way to cold chain and the way that vaccines are manufactured, even the syringes and needles, right? There's a need for sustainable and local manufacturing so that supply chain is causing one of the largest contributors to climate change today. So I think every organization and individuals also can contribute in part to kind of help bring this entire impact down, and we should keep talking about it. I would love to engage in this. Anybody in the audience who want to connect with this, please feel free to. Would love to speak and connect over this. Thank you. My gratitude to Global Innovation Fund team. All of you, thank you for having me over today.
Thank you. And Annie, over to you.
Thank you once again, Katie and the Global Innovation Fund, for providing us this platform to share our work. So my call to action is really going back to our vision that every home is resilient. So we'll be happy to work together if we are towards that one goal. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks so much, and thanks to all of you for taking time out today. And I think you summed it up very nicely, but I hope that the audience is feeling inspired. When you read the news every day, it seems a bit doom and gloom. So it's really great to have spent some time with the three of you to hear about the impactful work that you're doing and how we can all make a difference. Thank you again for your time. Thanks for everyone.